Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and to this time-lapse version of a very gorgeous English Cocker Spaniel in the orange Roan colouring. If you would like to see a full-length tutorial series on this, I will be releasing that over on my Patreon, but I hope that you enjoy the speedy version here. As always, if you do, please do hit subscribe. This piece is on the brown colour of Pastel Matte and it's 18 by 14 inches, which is quite large when you're just doing basically a head portrait and not much else. And you can see the lovely surroundings behind her. Of course, she is a proper lady on her yacht or sailboat, I'm not sure. And so we get a little glimpse of the lovely calm ripples behind. And they too are reflecting some of this beautiful warm lighting that we get right across the whole piece. And as always, the lighting is going to be actually the main star of the painting, because that is what tends to make the painting most interesting. I do love to see glowing, warm light on a subject. It just makes everything so much more interesting to paint because we get these huge contrasts in the colours, and especially with white areas. So even here on the side of the boat, we get the white, bright top edge that is catching the light. And then we get the blues and the blue violets where that white dips into the shadows. And that is going to be the running theme for this entire portrait. So you've got to remember when you're painting anything, especially white, where it dips into the shadows, it can be anything but white. And because this lovely dog is surrounded by so much blue in the water, probably in the sky, of course, we do expect to get a lot of blue reflected off of her too. And at first glance at this reference image, that really delighted me because just look at the vibrant oranges running through her beautiful coat. And of course, if we know that blue and orange are opposite colours, then we can guess that that combination in the painting is going to really sing. So I purposefully picked up some of my most vibrant orange tones from the deeper red oranges right through to the light yellow oranges for the highlights. And I threw a lot of vibrant colours into this, even on the shadow side where I'm picking up blues. Quite often I'll choose quite dusky, dull blues as shadow colours, whereas in this piece I did have some dusky blue violets as well, but I also used some really vibrant blues. A lot of these are from the Unison range of colours. I use predominantly Unison pastels. And then some of my darker values in this piece coming from Terry Ludwig. And if I'm ever going to pick up any Terry Ludwigs, it is most likely to be those lovely darks. In particular, the eggplant colour, which I talk about a lot. But the rest of the colours coming from Unison's lovely colour range, all of these vibrant oranges and browns, right through to the lovely vibrant blues. And you can see where I'm aiming the blue tones and where I'm saving the warmer, brighter yellow tints close to white. But there was actually no pure white used in this piece. A question I get asked quite often is how to make white look brighter in your painting. And the trick actually isn't so much about the white that you use. So there is no magical white that is extra bright and it really sings out of no matter what painting it's in. It's more to do with the other colours surrounding the white. So if you want something to look brighter in your painting, the likeliness is you need to go and darken the surrounding colours, so create more contrast. One of my catchphrases in nearly all of my tutorials is, "It's always darker than you think." So question your colour choices when you're picking up a colour to add to a painting. Question whether it really needs to be as bright as the colour you've chosen. Because honestly, it is almost always darker than you think. So even with the bright areas on the dog's fur here, I didn't use any pure white. My lightest value is a very pale yellow tint, grey 27. And I will quite often use something like this as my brightest white value, because pure white itself can sometimes be a bit cold, a bit stark. And of course in this piece, it's really warm. Those brightest areas on the dog are really warm. Now the trickiest part of this portrait was the pattern on the dog's fur. I think I've painted the blue roan type of fur many times, but I don't think I've ever painted an orange roan. What a beautiful pattern this is. But of course it is quite tricky to capture. The wonderful thing about soft pastel though is the ability to work from dark to light. So you can see a lot of the time I'm starting darker than it needs to be in the end. And then I'm coming in with progressively lighter colours. And that works well for this type of fur because I can lay down whatever the base colour needs to be, or in this case, the colour of the spots on the dog's face. Those oranges and browns. And then I just gradually lighten that. And on the left side of the face, of course, I'm using the pale yellow tints. And then on the right side, those white patches are lots of different shades of blue and blue violet. And that instantly gives us the sense of light and shade. So onto a lovely wet nose. Again, lots of dark colours laid down first. And then being quite sparing with the brightest highlights so that they really glisten. If you overdo it with the highlights, sometimes they completely lose their impact. So this is going to be a really interesting tutorial series for my patrons over on Patreon. I don't turn all of my larger paintings into tutorial series, but if I feel like there's something really interesting happening, then I'll usually give my patrons the choice whether they would like to see this as a full tutorial. And everyone has jumped on this one. And I think it's mainly because of the colour theory at play here. Sometimes my use of colour theory is a lot more subtle, and it can be a bit more difficult to see why I'm using certain colours, and I do explain that a lot in my tutorials. But in this piece, you can literally see colour theory happening with the use of the complementary colours. And you can literally see the split down the dog's face, where one colour ends and another begins because of the light and shade. So this is going to be an excellent tutorial series if you're struggling with color theory. This one is going to make it so much more obvious how to make use of color to accurately create the sense of light and shade in a painting. Sometimes the more obvious the lighting is on a reference photo, the easier it is to paint. I find that flat lighting is a little bit more subtle, whereas very definite sunlight hitting the subject from one side like this, that makes things just a little bit more obvious. And of course, we have some other areas of interest in this piece. The lovely ripples behind the dog, and then the really interesting life jacket on the dog. So quite often I'll paint collars in a pet portrait, but not so often life jackets. And it's quite a similar idea to painting a collar, I suppose. There's just a lot more going on here and a lovely big buckle to create as well. So all of this piece was really enjoyable. I will absolutely miss this lovely dog being on my easel like she has been for the past couple of weeks. Such a beauty of a dog, and a really interesting and challenging portrait to create. So lots of little details on the life jacket, the textures of the fabrics, the shine of the plastic buckle. All of these different textures, totally doable with soft pastel. It's such a versatile medium. And you'll notice that a lot of the time I'm not really making use of much pastel pencil. Just a little bit here and there to neaten things. But the majority of all of this done with the pastel sticks. So I'm all about using the full opacity of the pastel sticks and the strength of the colours that you get. And then of course the pastel pencils have their use. A little bit of whiskers, some tiny details around the edges. So do come and check me out over on Patreon if you would be interested in learning from my real-time tutorials. And you can have a browse through all of the tutorials I have available. I'll add the link to my library in the description below. Also check out the video link here at the end of this one for my soft pastel retreat next year in the south of Spain if you would like to come and learn from me in person. But thanks so much for watching this here. Please do remember to subscribe. And until next time, happy pasteling.